So, welcome to Making Sense of the Muddle and the Struggle with myself, Nicholas Haines. Now, we're going to break this down into four fairly uneven parts. We're going to be looking at kind of setting the scene. We're going to look at the kind of cycles of time that we're currently in, the energy of this particular time. Then we're going to look in this idea, this concept that we've been sitting in this soup of becoming, and a glimpse into your power and your kind of role at this particular time. Because inherently, I believe that you were born into this time because you have a role to play in the future of humanity. And that, I think, all starts with a deeper understanding of who you are and what's really going on. They often say that the future is for the young, but there are certain moments in time or eras in which that moment in time is actually for the experienced, the people with experience of life. And we are currently sitting in a moment in time when it's actually all about those who have experience. So it's a really important time. However, it is a what would appear to be a tricky time if you don't really understand what's going on or what is inherently being asked of you. So let's just set the scene. Let's look at these kind of cycles of time. Now, we are literally surrounded by these cycles and these patterns. We have kind of day and night transmove. They have moons going in cycles. We've got the seasons as they kind of move around in cycles. We also have larger cycles of time. We've got the kind of planets moving around the sun. We've got enormous cycles as our Milky Way moves around the kind of cosmos with a 250 million year cycle. So, as human beings, one of the things that we inherently do is we start to spot cycles and patterns. And you'd have done it from a young age. We kind of know that day and night happens and we see that cycle. We know the difference between summer and spring. And we kind of make a kind of a mental note of these cycles. So we can't to recognize, we know that when the sun goes down, it will come up again. It will be fine. And however cold the winter will be, there will be a spring that will arrive. So in our lifetime, we get a sense of these patterns. Now, imagine over time, we started to record these patterns. We started to record these patterns with one generation after another. And then we started to record these patterns, not just within our lifetime or a single lifetime or a generational series of generations, but over thousands and thousands of years, people were recording the patterns and seeing what went on. Now, there are many cultures that did this. In fact, all the ancient cultures were fairly obsessive about looking for patterns and cycles, and much of our wisdom and understanding about cycles and patterns can come from the ancient cultures. You also have to remember that in modern world, some of the wealthiest people, some of the make their money or make their living by spotting patterns in the stock market, in housing, in various different things. So our ability as humans to spot patterns is an indicator of our success. We kind of know going to go on. Now, imagine then we have a culture that has 5,000 years of spotting patterns. And that's inherently what the ancient Chinese did. They spent 5,000 years of writing down and recording patterns and flow and understanding the nature of the world through understanding the five energies, the yin and the yang. And they understood and made sense of personal development, change and flow. They looked at the cycles of politics, of education and business, how energy circulates around our body and comes and goes and ebbs and flows for our health. They looked at things all about prediction with the I Ching. They had looking at cycles of war and peace and economics and relationships as they go up and down. And they had an incredible depth of understanding as to what was going on in a way that makes our understanding seem very trivial. They had it down pat. And then much of this information that was operating and running one of the longest dynasties, the Chinese dynasty, the Zhou dynasty, very successful, was suddenly lost within a 15-year period in the Great Fires of Qin, which when a small dynasty took over, and for 15 years they were dominant. The other dynasties lasted for thousands of years. This went for 15 years, but within that time, they ordered the burning of all books except a few to do with prediction, placement medicine, and war. And they buried all the philosophers alive that were talking about the cycles of time and how things worked. And all that was left at the end of this period of the Qing was a little bit of information on health, a bit about prediction with the I Ching, and a bit on war. But all the personal development, flow, change, politics, education, business, etc., it was all lost. We know those books exist because we have the library records, but we don't actually have any records of it. And what I have done all my adult life is looked for cycles and patterns, and it was a stress response to early childhood trauma. And when I eventually arrived in Los Angeles in 1980 and started to study the five elements, it was like I saw the Matrix. I suddenly could say, okay, I see patterns now. And my brain was rewired to tap into these ancient patterns that the Chinese had discovered and to try and bring them back to the world. That's what I've done all my adult life. And once you get to see the patterns, and they are really simple once you get to see them, it makes all the difference in your life. So let's just look at the energy of the time we're in. So the Chinese operate within a 60-year cycle. So there's various different cycles. This is their Chinese zodiac. It operates in a 60-year cycle. Very simple. Each year is associated with one particular animal, and the animal gives it characteristics and nature, something about it. So currently we're in the kind of year of the snake. And snakes are interesting creatures. They're about lies and deception, and about they grow by shedding their skin. Now, each year is also associated with one of the five elements. We're currently in a wood snake year. Wood energy is about revolution, change, growing. Things are new. So you could say this year has been about, are we revolutionizing our life by releasing something growing into ourselves? But more on that later. So each year is related to one of the animals and one of the five elements, and so they occur once every 60 years. Now, currently, we're in the equivalent to 1965. Now, each year has a kind of a theme and a flow to an undercurrent of vibration. It's kind of getting us to do something and explore something. Now, the vibration of that particular year will vibrate with you. It will vibrate with your and it will interact with your stars, east and west, your numerology, the essence of who you are. And I think that can get quite confusing, to be honest. You say, well, okay, we've got all these elements and animals, and they're interacting with my numerology, my east and west stars, my essence, my hereditary energy, the stuff my parents given me, my beliefs. It gets to be confusing. So I think the best way to understand these cycles of time is via the energies you have within you, which you can measure by taking the vitality test. And the reason I think it is so good is because they're very similar understanding. And once you understand the energies, and they are literally building blocks, and they have very simple approach to them. Each of them has a question, each of them has a season. And once we get to know them, that's very easy. And I think that's the best way to understand our interaction with these particular years. So, okay, we're equivalent to 1965. So we could say, okay, well, what was happening in 1960, in the 1960s? Well, there was a big movement of saying we want peace, we want love. We're looking at the climate, we're looking at communities, we're looking at healthy living. All the seeds that were sown in the 1960s are appearing now in a similar way. There was also within this aim and desire for a new world with peace and love and stuff. They were getting over the grief from two world wars, but there was also fighting that was kind of going on. But there was a time where they wanted to and say, we want to have community and love. It's something different we're trying to do. They were also looking about space and sending people out to the moon, and hey ho, we're doing something different. And then they had something very special as part of what I call the inspired revolution. There were people there that had dreams. They had dreams of a new way and a new world beginning. And we are having dreams now, but there is something more complicated going on in this version of the 60s than they had. This is like the 60s on steroids. And that is because we have got something going on that we have been born into that hasn't happened for over 2000 years. And that is that we have some other very, very long cycles of time and humanity. Geopolitics, consumerism, spirituality are sitting in one energy, and they're all trying to move into another energy at the other at the same time. To understand the nature of our geopolitics moving into a different energy, it means everything changes. We start to have breakdown of old systems, and the beginning of new systems trying to come forth, but the old systems resist. It's same with our consumerism, the way we decide we want to spend and treat the planet, and how we want to interact. Do we want to be global consumerism? Do we want to have? And we're kind of all moving into different energies, and consumerism is moving into metal energy, which is less is more because of the overwhelm, and our spirituality is shifting into a completely different energy, an energy that is an unprecedented evolutionary jump in terms of our spirituality. And that is what the kind of muddle and the struggle is about. We have all the changes we were going to try and get in the 60s, plus geopolitics, spirituality, consumerism, all trying to shift into different energy. And it creates a muddle and a struggle, but also something phenomenal for us. So looking at this, and I'm calling it sitting in the soup of becoming. Now, my mother was a famous writer. She said, when you write a book, you have the beginning, the muddle, and the end. And have been through the beginning of this change, and we're now sitting in the muddle of it. Before we end up with what we're going to end up, we are currently sitting in the muddle. Another way you could look at it, it's a bit like we have been a caterpillar and we're transforming into becoming a butterfly. But us individually, spiritually, collectively, society, currently are not a butterfly and we're not a caterpillar. We are currently sitting in the soup. We're sitting in the soup of becoming. And that has been a perfect thing for you to have been doing as an individual. So, how would the soup of sitting in the soup of becoming, what would that look like? Well, the first thing to say, it is the perfect thing to have been doing, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's been an easy thing. It's similar to a caterpillar that goes into this chrysalis and turns into a soup. There is a dissolving of who we are, who we thought we were, dissolving of old beliefs, dissolving of identity. It might be a kind of dark night of the soul. We might feel lost. We might not know what is going on. And it is the right thing to have done, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's been easy. And a year or so ago, I made a video talking about that I was feeling fundamentally broken by the experiences that I had had with the loss and the difficulties that all this stuff had come up. And I felt like I had been broken by the universe, by the world. But it was trying to recognize that I wasn't broken. I wasn't being broken. I was being rearranged in order to emerge. So within this sitting in the soup, I think we have to have compassion for ourselves and for other people, that the soup has been a necessarily place to be, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily been easy. One of the things that can happen as we have these times of great change is we can have a human response to sitting in the soup. And the human response to sitting in the soup is to move into the energetic field of certainty, to be certain that you are right, or certain that and at the same time, a total absence of certainty. So we've seen a split with people out there in the world being absolutely certain that this is how to do it, and etc. And it might be quite difficult for you as an individual if you have not been certain. You can't really say you're not certain. You've just been lost, particularly if you are someone that has been working towards this time and has vast experience, and perhaps you should think, oh, I should be out there with this experience. I should have held it all together. I've been working towards this time, and yet I didn't do it. And I think there are kind of a number of different reasons for that. The first one is this is the age of experience, and we have to have another experience, and we have to shift another identity. We have to get rid of certain things that perhaps never suited us. It's also the very nature of those of us that have been sitting in the soup of becoming. We're often sensitive souls, and we're often souls that search and are sensitive. And the very nature of being sensitive is these energy waves, which are very dramatic and extreme and turbulent, can be really hard for our sensitive souls to deal with it. And so there is a temptation to just say, I can't do with this. And then you're dealing with your own stuff. So I want to acknowledge this is not an easy experience for us, but it's the right thing to have done. However, it is no longer the right place and to be sitting in the soup. Is actually a time that we actually collectively need to exit the soup. Um, and I just want to talk about the exiting of the soup because although it can feel that that is the right path to follow, I need to get out there in the world and I need to do those things, there will be inherently an obstruction around that. And I want to explore a little bit of the obstructions around that and then the use and the power of the five energies to help you make sense and get out of the soup. So we need to come out in the soup, but that's not necessarily easy. And one of the things that the soup to a certain extent has become comfortable in an uncomfortable way. It's become comfortable because it's our known identity. It's now our known identity. And for many people that have been doing this metamorphosis, this coming out into the world, that are dealing with some quite big things that they're here to deal with, and the energies tell us what those are. We have been there for a while, and there can have developed an identity around being lost, an identity around being in the soup, an identity around the struggle, identity around the muddle. And the problem with a new identity that has formed, even if it doesn't suit us, it's known. And identities inherently, they don't want to change and they don't want to die. So there will be a resistance to move forward, even though it's kind of holding you back. This can also be a situation that as individuals, if we're saying, okay, we need to go out into the world and to be seen, in order to do that, we have to have a certain confidence. And it may well be that the experiences you've had of being sitting in the soup, where there probably has been very little validation for you, for your core confidence, has left you with a confidence issue. Or it might have left you with, I don't know what I'm good at. I don't know what my strengths are. I don't know what. Or it might have been that you dismantled great parts of your world in order to go into the soup. The dismantling of your world may well have been for a reason. And again, the energies, it teaches us those things. So it might be that you had a community and you had a lot of earth energy, but inherently your lesson there with the other earth energy was, do I know the difference between giving and sacrifice? And maybe you had moved into a place of sacrifice and therefore that was your lesson to learn. Or maybe your fire energy, which is excited and burns brightly and illuminates the world, maybe it just you didn't put some boundaries in place and you didn't learn to say no to things because you might want to make people happy and maybe you kind of burnt out or maybe you started having this wood energy and all these hopes and the dreams and you just never got anything finished and you thought, oh God, I have an identity of someone that doesn't get finished. Or maybe with your water energy you saw the big picture, which is what water energy is brilliant at doing, and maybe that just scared the hell out of you and you thought, actually, this is enormous and I don't feel safe, or maybe things were dismantled, or maybe that metal energy you've got, which is related to autumn to fall, and maybe just the things being dismantled and taken away from you, maybe that was just too uncomfortable and you went into a state of loss and grief, or maybe you just thought the world is so imperfect you don't want to be part of it anymore and you just detached. But I think one of the things we need to recognize is the energies can be really useful to understand why we went into the suit, what we were trying to do, and also how we can come out of it. And if you pick just something like confidence, and with confidence, we have three sorts of confidence. We have our core confidence, the confidence we build up and we say, this is who I am, which would have been rattled by being in the soup without a doubt, because, you know, that's what happened. We also have situational confidence and conscious confidence, our ability to step into being confident. And then I think one of the ones that we is useful to understand is our situational confidence. And our situational confidence, how the situation we put ourselves into will relate, how that relates to our core confidence. And the situation, it doesn't matter how good your core confidence is, you put yourself into a situation, your core confidence to wobble. And the secret is that your situational confidence is dependent upon your energies. So you can spend all your time thinking something's wrong with you, but it isn't. It's just literally once you understand your vitality test profile, you can recognize that If you don't feel safe with your water energy, you won't feel confident with wood energy if you don't feel free, etc. Each of them has a thing, very simple way to look at it. And one of the things I think we really need to avoid, and one of the things we really need to do is we need to learn around the energies and say, actually, I'm not going to be confident in this situation. I have a lot of earth energy. If I don't understand what I'm meant to be doing, I don't feel confident. Other people with a lot of fire energy, if they don't feel they're being loved and appreciated, they won't feel confident to step into the world. Metal energy, they're not confident if they haven't had a chance to prepare and it doesn't feel right. And wood energy, if they feel trapped or in some way, they're not going to feel confident to move into something new if they think this is going to trap me. So I think it's really important that we understand the energies and our situational confidence and and to lean into the energies and to really don't try to constantly build up your core confidence or endlessly search for what's wrong with you. You're completely normal. You will have a situational confidence that is your energy based and lean into the energies to get to understand that. In the same way as if you're coming out into the world, you say, come out into the world, you might have some internal contradictions, which is when one part of you wants one thing and one part wants something else. And internal contradictions, they freeze us, they get us stuck. Your wood energy might want freedom and your earth energy might want to belong to a community. How can you have the two together? Well, it's to do with the design and the systems and the structures. So if you're struggling to come out into the world and you feel one part wants something and one part wants something else, then you need to design it around the energies that you have. So I want to just kind of just wrap up with an acknowledgement again back down to that thing that this is the time for people with experience. It's almost a time that you have been waiting for all your life. It is a time where you will have been sitting in the soup perhaps for years, becoming, and there are imprints and consequences to the soup. You say, well, I'm not sure why I was born into this time, because you were born at this time because you have incredible gifts. You have incredible experience, you have incredible things to be out there in the world helping people. And the helping people could just be that you are the voice of calm or the voice of optimism, or actually, when everyone is shouting at each other and doing this thing, you're just sitting there sending love into the world. Or maybe you need to step back into a version of what you were doing before as a new person, as a new version of you. And you have to remember that the energies of this time, every single year, is there to help us. 2020, the beginning of this big change, and 21, there were two metal energy years. It was about us letting go and releasing and saying, this is what I value. And we were isolated metal energy. Then we had two water energy years, which was about our testing our and saying out, do I have resources? Do I have reserves? It's the sustainability. I mean, we were given experiences to make you look at your sustainability. And then we've had two wood energy years, a wood dragon year last year, and dragons give messages from heaven to earth. They're revolutionary. It's the best time to manifest, but it also wood energy is around boundaries and creation. So were you given things that you were given experiences to test and learn boundaries? We've had another boundary-based year with this wood snake year. And snakes are the best years in the 60-year cycle to release limiting beliefs. Snakes grow by shedding their skin. And what do you grow into? You grow into the revolution of your life, the biggest change in your life. And each year has everything there for you. And one of the things we need to recognize is that the block of time that we're in, a 12-year block of time, has four metal energy years. It starts with metal energy, ends with metal energy. The brilliance of that is it gives us an ability to step out, to get some distance, to get rid of things, to release things, just like autumn, fall, we let go of things. However, the big question for metal energy is what's missing, what isn't there, and it can give you a sense that something is missing in your life. But that again, that is there to help you look for what it is you're meant to be becoming. Metal energy is also about perfection. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to find ways to get out of the soup. But this is your time, but it has been difficult. And I think the real secret is to is to use the ancient wisdom of the five energies just to make sense of the muddle, to understand who we are and understand what our strengths are, our superpowers are, to boost our confidence, to do all those sorts of things. And at the Five Institute, we have kind of programs to help you with it. We're just about to run the art and the energy of becoming, um, which is running 3 weeks before Christmas and the holidays and 3 weeks afterwards. And it is exploring the energies of what we've been through. It's a collective experience. Because ultimately, I'll just go back to something I really said right at the beginning. That I really do believe that you've been born into this time because you have a role to play in the future of humanity. But this experience may not have been easy. But it does start with a deeper understanding of what's going on. And I think the energies are the best thing. And I want to end with a final thought. And if you remember nothing else, just remember this final thought. And that is, we are in a time of great change. But what you are seeing in the world now is not your future. It's a little bit like you're moving house and you're surrounded by boxes and there's chaos and the kids are running around. It's just like mess everywhere. That is not your future. That is just the move from one place to another. So just hold in your mind what you are seeing in the world and experiencing is not your future. It is the change from one place to another. And human beings struggle with change, and as sensitive souls, you may well struggle with it as well. But this experience here is not your future. There is something completely different, but there are things you are being asked to do at this particular time. But this is not your future. This is a time of transition that you have been gifted, and there is help out there for you.